Good afternoon and welcome back to our Chamber South Spotlight with our partners here at Miami Community Newspapers. My name is Brittnie Bassant and I'm the Executive Director for Chamber South, and we are so thrilled to have with us two very special guests from the firm PAAST. So I have with me Shaun Moraga and Marcos Alavarez. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Wow. That was so insane. That was perfect. We could not have planned that better. We did not plan that. I know, clearly. All right, gentlemen. So Shaun, let's start with you. Tell me a little about you and your background, your career, how you got into this field, what you do and how you got into it. And then we'll move on to Marcos.
Well, I've always had a major interest in computers itself. Never did I think I was going to be auditing until I got to this firm. I started off pretty much more on the engineering side, architectural and building networks and so forth. And eventually that experience and that knowledge.
You were in engineering?
Well, in IT.
Okay. I was like,
building.
I was like, wait a minute. Hang on. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Continue.
So it's not as complex as it sounds. So anyhow, that's where I started like having knowledge in that industry. And eventually I went to PAAST, started working there. I wasn't technically doing audit at first. And eventually one of the partners, and Mark himself as well, would kind of reach out to me and say, would I be interested in doing audits on the technical side? And it was something that's kind of starting to spark up in the industry right now at that time. And it is a lot bigger now. Obviously, it's developed to what it is today. But how do you call it? That's kind of like how it started. One of the partners reached out to me, told me, listen, would you be interested? I tried it out a few times and eventually I fell in love, and that's kind of where my passions kind of sat. And that's what I've been doing since for the last, almost, it's going to be 7 years I've been at PAAST.
That's what I was going to ask you. How long have you been with PAAST? 7 years. 7 years. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but IT auditing, that's extremely interesting. So I want to learn more about that.
Oh, yeah.
But before, we got to meet Marcos too. So Marcos, tell me a little bit about you. Same question. How did you get into this? How long you've been doing it? What drew you to this field and this career?
Yeah, so I've been always good with numbers. So when I kind of in high school, I was, interested in numbers and stuff. And most people who like numbers are accountants. So that's just the field where I kind of started off on. And I went to and I met actually one of the partners. I got a scholarship from a nonprofit association, and I met one of the partners through there, and that's kind of how I met the firm and just kind of interned with them while at and then I've been with the firm already 14 years.
And you're a partner.
I'm a partner
with the firm. Wow,
yes.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
That's huge. Okay, so tell me, either one of you can jump in or do it together. Tell me what is PAAST? What do you guys do? What services do you provide? And what are some of the specific industries that you work with?
Yeah, so we're a full service accounting firm. Going from tax to accounting to consulting. And then we also have another side of the firm, which is where Shaun helps out, which is IT, information technology, consulting, and auditing as well. So it's a full service accounting firm. We're about 65 people right now. So when I started with the firm 14 years ago, we're probably 15 people. So we've grown.
Wow.
Yeah, we've grown a lot throughout the years. And that's because of the team and our clients.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about IT auditing.
So sure, yeah, definitely. So
what does that mean?
So you know what? Funny you ask. That's a question I get all the time, and everyone's always asking me, "You're an IT auditor. What exactly is that?" So when I go into that topic, it's almost difficult to explain sometimes. But pretty much assurance and compliance, and making sure that organizations are at least meeting a baseline as far as controls to monitor the network, right? Monitor for traffic, monitor for security. You want to obviously prevent malware, infections, and so forth. And when I started doing this, a very common word I guess you may hear in the media and just about everywhere is cybersecurity, right? That's just something that's been being picked up just about by everyone nowadays. And security has always been a major interest for every organization. I think we all obviously care about confidentiality and integrity of data, but it's always been on paper, right? It's only, I want to say, the last 10 years, maybe a little more, where everyone's starting to move kind of to a digital platform. And now it's when like cybersecurity is starting to really blow up, because Now it's not like someone can just walk into your organization and steal paperwork. Now they just need to access the network, which is accessible from the internet. So cybersecurity itself goes into that part of just making sure that we're monitoring networks. There's proper controls in place to prevent things like, for example, ransomware, right? Ransomware, I don't know how many times we hear that on a daily basis or a weekly basis. Ransomware is something that has developed very quickly. It started off with, developers and, individuals just kind of trying things out, and eventually building that's code to be able to create that ransomware, right? And now it's pretty much accessible to anyone with something as simple as just purchasing that service in the dark web, which, if you're not familiar with the dark web, that's kind of like just a part in the web where you're able to purchase things,
social security numbers. Yes.
Okay.
So
you're honestly scaring the heck out of me right now, but continue, please.
Well, I mean, look, this is a topic I can go on forever, obviously. But anyways, it's something that's available to anyone nowadays. Before it was skilled individuals who knew how to perform that, right? And now it's more like they're offering that service to just about anyone that's willing to pay for it through the use of cryptocurrency, in most cases being Bitcoin. So due to that, and the lack of cybersecurity, where there isn't that interest yet in organizations investing the time and resources to monitor their networks to that extent where they can prevent ransomware or at least mitigate against it. I'm not saying prevent it completely, because there's always going to be some risk potentially there. But, in the end of the day, ransomware, I don't know if you've seen lately the Colonial Pipeline, which was a major issue. That affected us on the East Coast completely. And that's a major problem, because it can affect not just that organization itself, but society. So sometimes organizations need to realize that, based on the industry that you're in, sometimes you can affect society. And it's always good to have, your business continuity there and your business impact analysis, in other words, to really understand what you can do in circumstances where you can no longer deliver a particular service that society may need. So,
and that's one line of business where we see it kind of growing over time, because when people think of cybersecurity and hackers, they just think of financial institutions kind of being hacked, and you've seen on the news lately, meat processing plant, different
nothing's
types.
off the table.
Yeah.
Nothing's off limits. And it's really interesting too, because we're talking a lot about this digital world, this virtual world that we've really seen explode in the past, decade. But really, honestly, in the past, 12 to 14 months, we all pivoted to this online platform. Everyone was on Zoom, and there was an issue with that, with Zoom, and with there being, hackers. I don't know if that's the right word. Pardon my use of it if I'm using it incorrectly. But there were security issues with that platform for a while. So it's all very relevant. So we're talking about all the different security issues and the different problems that may arise. How does your firm help with that?
So COVID did create a major uncertainty. And I think that's what led to probably one of the biggest experiments in the world, which was remote access, right? I think that was a time where everyone was struggling right after, the situation with the pandemic, where they were trying to get everyone to remote work from home and so forth, because no one could really come into your organization.
It's a very interesting time.
So very interesting time. And, we all had trouble during that time. I think every organization struggled with it simply because first of all, most of us are used to having a desktop, right? And no one had laptops. So now you have to go in through that. Oh, we got to buy laptops now because everyone's going to work remotely. And then it led to a shortage in laptops where okay, now we don't have any laptops to purchase anymore because everyone's buying them at the same time. So that was one of the difficult moments in the firm. I think aside from that, remote access, I think for the most part, we did pretty well. We already had kind of since we're a firm, for the most part, we audit at our clients. So we like to have that face-to-face relationship, right? And have conversation face-to-face. We prefer that. So we kind of already had an infrastructure that was built for remote access, but we were able to also be involved with assisting a lot of different organizations, including institutions, in getting them prepared for that remote access.
And then not only on the remote access side as well, but on security. So, we go into clients of ours and we kind of see their security posture to see, do they have the necessary controls to prevent a hacker from coming in, or if a hacker does try to come in, is it detected before they can steal any of the information? So when we go in to do audits, we kind of analyze what kind of controls they have in place. Are they designed correctly? We'll give recommendations as to how to enhance it. It's not 100% proof. If they want to come in, they're going to get in. But it's just preventive controls to make sure you have enough in place.
Just make it a little bit more difficult, right?
Yeah.
Don't make it an easy target.
Right. At the very least, we try to get them to a baseline. In other words, is our attempt. Everyone starts at a different level. Some organizations are larger than others, and we like to acknowledge resources, right, and budgeting and so forth. So we understand when it comes to that point that we're going to be looking at what we feel is right for that organization, but at the very least put them at a level where baseline they feel protected, right?
And it depends on the industry, right? Because some have more important client information such as social security numbers, addresses. Some places may have just minor client information. So the sensitivity information is important because that's what hackers are looking for data to steal and put in the dark web. So
that's how we can go forever.
I know. I'm like, okay, all right. Marcos, I want you to tell me a little bit more about some of the other services that you provide from the full side accounting.
Yeah, so we provide, like I said, accounting, auditing services. So the accounting side of our office, we kind of do bookkeeping. We do consulting. So companies have outsourced their whole accounting function to us, from invoicing to monthly reporting. So that's what our accounting group does. Our tax side does personal, corporate, international tax services. So we'll make sure they're in tax compliance, preparation of tax returns. We'll also, if IRS audits, we help with those. And then we do also have an auditing practice as well. That's not just IT, but we also do financial statement audits for different industries. One thing that we do is we have different industries. So we audit car dealerships, we audit financial institutions. So
I know you also work really closely in the not-for-profit field as well too, and that's huge.
Yes. So that's one thing that our firm distinguishes, is that we don't focus just on one. We kind of have a variety of different industries that we have experience in.
So you guys are across the board, and you offer this full suite of services that you can either have you on a retainer to provide all of these services, or kind of pick like a la carte. This is the menu that we have, and what is it that you want to have?
And we actually have something set up like that. It's kind of like a menu, and you can choose like what you really want to do.
And that's really important. When we talk about Chamber South, we talk about the small business champion. We really represent a lot of small businesses in our area, people who can't afford to have these large companies on retainer to provide these services if and when they need them, but may say, I'm looking for this specific service. I need to just have just this one thing, not the 20 other things that another larger firm will provide. It's good to have that option to just kind of pick and choose what makes sense for you and your business.
Yeah, we try to tailor to our clients' needs. Some clients want everything. Some clients just want one aspect of our services. So we kind of tailor to whatever their needs are.
Absolutely.
And that's the flexibility of being a local community firm.
Headquartered right here in Coral Gables.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to pivot a little bit, and we're going to talk about corporate social responsibility. And I really want to talk about this with you guys because I know that your firm has a track record in corporate social responsibility, giving back to the community, being very involved in the community. You've won countless awards in different areas and different fields for that. So tell me a little bit about those initiatives. Yeah.
So we one of our focuses is corporate responsibility, and we do volunteer actually at least once a year. Sometimes it's twice a year. We actually close the firm for the day and we go volunteer at different organizations across the city. We also have several of our employees, our members, different not-for-profit organizations where we would go. If there's an event, we would go to the event. We sponsor the event. We support we send teams to the event to support them. So firm-wide, it's one of our goals is to make sure we're part of the community. And attending community events and supporting the community in any way we can. We do, food drives when necessary. Good, we collect goods for people in need. So it's kind of depending on what's going on in the world. We kind of gear our social responsibility at that point.
That's absolutely huge. And whenever I have organizations that I know support corporate social responsibility, organizations that don't have to give back but choose to give back, I think it's extremely important to recognize that fact. So I think we're getting ready to wrap up in a little bit, but is there any specific initiative or service or anything that you want to highlight from your firm? Is there anything that we haven't touched on, that we haven't talked about, that you guys are like, oh, but we also have this, or there's something else that you want to highlight?
Off the top of my head, not really. I think we touched a lot of the stuff, especially the technical stuff. I know
you're not allowed to talk about the dark web anymore.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
No. It's okay. It's great. It's extremely important information. I think it's cybersecurity.
It's big. It's growing, and yeah, I think that a lot of organizations, as they grow interest in this, it's definitely comes to a point where they start adding resources and time into securing their infrastructure.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that we see is we usually have those calls for auditing, accounting, but what we've seen a large increase is requests for information technology support, not only for in-house support but also auditing. And people are now learning and listening to cybersecurity ransomware more often than it used to be. So that's one of the things that gets people scared.
Yeah, it's more prevalent.
Yes,
I believe, and the more prevalent it becomes, the more targets, unfortunately, there are. I mean, no one's really exempt from that. So making sure that you have the right infrastructure in place and the right protocols in place to make you less of a target, just to make it a little bit more difficult.
Try to prevent that as much as you can.
Right. Well, you can diminish the threat by working together as a community to make sure that you improve those infrastructures together. I think that for the most part, everyone kind of thinks that this only pertains to heavily regulated industries like institutions, which is what we kind of deal with for the most part, and some other organizations that, like, for example, healthcare, perhaps, that is also very heavily regulated. But I think as a whole, like now even manufacturing, all these other types of organizations need to kind of get involved so we can kind of diminish that threat, or at least reduce that threat. So there's no longer things like Colonial Pipeline or JBS Brands, which is the meat processing company, which these individuals, these organizations. For example, JBS, I think, had to pay nearly $11 million to be able to recover, right? And then you had Colonial was at 4.4, which I think they got a discount. I'm not sure exactly how that works. It was a lot more, but the FBI kind of somehow got involved and so forth. It ended up being like 4.4 million for them to get back online. So it's just things that
these companies pay these.
Yeah, they pay them, and that's
I
the problem.
think the U.S. government found
part of
it. They found some of the money and brought it back.
Some of them are able to. Sometimes it doesn't always happen. It's just something to be aware of, because at the end of the day, we keep funding them and not having those controls in place and that business continuity in place and those backups in place, and we keep funding them. The threat's only gonna grow more, because obviously the return on investment is there for them, even though it's not technically the right way to do it.
Got it. All right. Okay. So reduce the threat, diminish the threat, and reduce it. Reduce it, diminish it. Can we completely diminish it?
No.
We can reduce it. We can reduce it a little bit. Make sure that you protect against it. Call PAAST. Yeah. They're here to help you. They're headquartered right here in our community in Coral Gables, local firm. They understand the risks that are involved, and they can help you protect against those. So with that, we're going to wrap up our Chamber South member spotlight for this week. Again, these opportunities are provided to our Chamber South members on a weekly basis. So if you want to be on here and be featured, please reach out to us at Chamber South. And if you would like to know more about how you can protect your infrastructure at your organization, please reach out to PAAST. With that, thank you so much. Have a great week.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.